Hi there. Welcome to the Sober Circle channel. Enjoy this speaker tape.
Told you at the outset that I had many memories of this particular hotel, and one that you might be interested, particularly anyone who has served his country. I was stationed here in Toronto awaiting posting one stage of the Second World War. And I was occupying a chair in the bar, and my buddy, one of those kind of buddies that if you have enough of, who needs enemies, said to me, he says, our CO is entertaining a lady at room number so-and-so. He didn't put it quite that way, but that's what it meant. And as I sat there, I thought about this, and I thought about the injustice of it all. I had a drink dirty old beer in a men's pub, and he was lushing it up with a doll upstairs. So I decided he should be spoken to. And I spoke to him, and he spoke to me, and you know what happened to me. Oh, I have memories of this hotel. Our next speaker, George G. of Phoenix, Arizona. And when last I saw George, in 1962 at the General Service Conference, we were both serving as delegates. And at that time, George was out of Chicago. I don't know whether it's Chicago's loss and Phoenix's gain or vice versa. But here is George G. of Phoenix, Arizona.
My name is George Grimstead, and I am a powerless over alcohol. I don't blame you all for leaving. This is a good deal. I think we all ought to go down to Ontario, It's this guy that said up there tonight about this is ridiculous. Why, I think this is very true. I look out over the number of people, and it reminds me of the fellow that during the war, he was looking for a job as a machinist. And he went in his personnel office, and this guy started asking him questions about the different machines, and finally got to the point, he says, well, do you read micrometers? He said, yes, I do. He said, well, how many thousands in an inch? He says, I don't know, but there must be 1 million of them. You talk about introducing, it reminds me of the guy that said he was introducing, the next speaker is Mr. Jones of the Soils and Fertilizer Department, just full of the subject. They used to call me the drunken Swede, but it never bothered me because I'm Norwegian. I used to say that there's, they said there's men, and there's women, and there's girls, and there's boys, and then there's Bumstead. I figured out why I was a drunk. I was just overserved. I hail from Minnesota, where I was always the whole thing originated from. I come from Smoot Boulevard and Ludafisk Avenue up there. I'm a herring chauffeur. And when I was there, previous to I started drinking, I had firm convictions that I was never going to be a drunk, period. I've seen all these guys on Skid Row, and I said it might never happen to me. I was going to be an engineer, and I was going to be a number of other things, and I was going to university, And the closest I got to university, I heard that when I was on Skid Row in Minneapolis one time, I heard they were buying bodies for $25, and it's the closest I got to it. But I said I made up my mind that I wasn't going to drink. My mother had a terrific problem, and I didn't like it. So that I was on the corner one day with a bunch of guys, and I normally drank new beer with them. Now I couldn't. It wasn't working. I was too busy looking for a job. But, well, it comes, you know. But I was standing in the corner, and I was going to have my new beer, and they spiked one for me. Now, I drank this beer, and it was love in the beginning. I mean, I figured out, how nuts can you be? I mean, all these years I stayed away from this stuff. This is utopia. Because I was about 9 foot tall when I got through with this thing. And I drank the first night, I blacked out, I don't remember, and I woke up the next morning, and I had my hat and scarf on, and my pants were laid out neatly on the floor, and I found my shoes in the buffet. Now, how did the first drink feel to me? I'll tell you how it felt. It felt that the doctor was delivering Ole's 8th child, and he said to him, Ole, when you feel like propagating, you better figure how you're going to support these children. And Ole says, well, I'll tell you. He says, when I feel like propagating, I feel like I can support the whole state of Minnesota. But I started to drink. I took off in high gear. There was no low gear for me. I mean, I took off right now. I drank like it was going out of style in the beginning. I heard about a new drink now. I never heard about it before, but you drink carrot juice and whiskey. You get just as drunk, but you feel better. But anyway, I hang around these fellows and they used to I started drinking the morning drink. I drank it before I even needed it. But I started running into trouble right away when I started drinking. And I took a guy's car on New Year's Eve, and he told me I could take it home, and I never did get home with it. It was lost. I never did find it. And I was fired for being a drunk. And this was, incidentally, I was 17. I took my first drink when I was 17. When I sobered up, I was 35. But I was fired for being a drunk, and I decided that, Minneapolis was my problem. I was going to get out of there. So I joined the Sioux Chiefs, and I got up in the Northwoods, and I was introduced to vanilla extract, and I went around smelling like a sponge cake half the time. And then the doctor told me I should do something about my drinking up there, and I went away talking by myself that this knucklehead ought to mind his own stinking business. If I want to drink, I'll drink. And I think when I was 6, I had all the questions. When I was 16, I had all the answers. There's no going to tell me nothing. But I got back to Minneapolis, and I decided I needed some responsibility, so I decided I was going to get married. And I got married. I don't know how this happened, but it did. And she divorced me right shortly after that. I found out you're supposed to go on your honeymoon with your wife. But I'd never been married before. I didn't know her. But anyway, I left. I got drunk again. I left Minneapolis, and I blacked out. I didn't remember, and I woke up in Milwaukee. Now, this is my first Skid Row. I spent years after that on Skid Rows all over the country, because during the time I was in Milwaukee, I got a telegram that said my mother was dying in the hospital in Minneapolis to come home, and I bummed enough money, and I got there, and I walked up to the hospital, and they said to me, I asked if I could see her, and they said it was sorry, but she died an hour and a half before from acute alcoholism. Well, I thought I was doomed to die from being a drunk because my uncle had died and my grandfather, I believe it run in the family. And I figured that I had had some religion, and I figured the sins of the fathers visit down in the third and fourth generation, and I thought I was paying for the whole stinking mess anyway, you know. But I bummed around the country, and I sleeping in pokies, and I've slept in Sally's, and in fact, I got run out of the Sally up in Cheyenne. They wouldn't even have me up there, you know. Heard about the guy called up to Sally, and he says, "You can save women down there?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Go save me a couple. I'll be right down." Well, I got to bumming around. I was out in California, and I slept in these nickel shows, and I decided that I was going to do something about my drinking, and I decided to be a cowpoke, so I wound up in Wyoming. The only found up there is I had sand in my drink. That's the only difference. Sleeping in sheep wagons and a few others, sagebrush, and going to town getting drunk and locked up every Saturday until the police come in and asked me they told me to take me a ride, and they gave me a ride, and they took me out of town, and they asked me to leave. They had enough trouble with the local citizens where I had a knee around there, you know. And I wound up in North Platte, Nebraska, and I met a guy, and he invited me to come to Chicago because he said he owned a stable with horses. And I know he didn't think I'd come, but I did. And I wound up in Chicago. I had boots and high hat, and I had 8 cents in my pocket, and no stockings. My stockings looked like spats a long time ago. You know, the stockings, you put them on from both ends. And I come in, and this is the first night I met my wife. That incidentally, my wife, they should give her the what's this medal they give you over and beyond the call of duty or something, you know. But anyway, we got married. I think he was married by the Secretary of War or something. I don't know. And I would make enough dough, enough loot, so we'd get a apartment, you know, and the payment wouldn't be paid the second week, so we could boot it out and keep our clothes. And this thing kept on until a council of war got together and decided that it should come home with mother-in-law, you know. Well, there's a definition of mother-in-law, Gestapo and bloomers. She was my higher power for years. But this didn't work out too good, and finally they decided that I needed some responsibility, so they bought a home out in Forest Park, and there when I found out that she would own the mortgage, there was no more payments. Well, I was getting worse. I don't know if you can spoil garbage or not, but I was getting worse. And I got a hold of another knucklehead and myself. We decided that we were going to help each other stay sober, and we worked out pretty good for a while. And then one day we come from work, and we was 1 block from the house, and we went in and had this one beer, and the stage was set. The guy tending bar says, "Have a shot," so we had a shot, and then we couldn't leave the winner on. You got to buy one back. I come to 2 weeks later in the McNeil Memorial Hospital. And I found out later that it had been a head-on collision. He was killed instantly. Now, the only reason I mention this is because there is nothing ever going to scare me from quitting drinking. I mean, this never happened that way. So I was finally got home, and I was laid up for a number of months after that. I had a number of skin grafts, and I go back and forth to the hospital. But I schemed until I could figure out how I was going down the corner to get a drink. And I talked him into getting me a wheelchair. I used to go down the corner and get drunk in his wheelchair. And then they'd push me home, and here I'd sit in the backyard when my wife was going home for work. Well, somebody had to work. Well, I got worse. I got off of crutches and cane, and I got a job in a gin mill in Berwyn. I had a key job. I unlocked the door every morning, I guess. I was swamping out the joint. But I was a neighborhood rummy. I was the guy they point the finger, look at that jerk, you know. They'd just make the fun all the time. The guy one time, just to show you, the guy says, "You want a drink?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, give him a beer." So he gave me a beer, and he said, "You want a wine too?" I said, "Yeah, that's some wine." "Okay, give him a wine." So he took the wine and poured it in the beer. Well, I drank it. You can't be fussy. Oh, I might say I wasn't mean drunk either. I could start a fight in the empty washroom, but I I entertained one time. I worked over the radio for a while, and this guy used to say to me, he says, boy, he says, I always tell you, you're half loaded. You come in, you're split for the ears. If it wasn't for the ears, you cut your top of your head off. You look like a jackass eating crystals. But I was in this gin mill, and I made up my mind one day that I was really going to stay sober. I was going to do this. For one time I used to think, well, that remember, I see these movies about the guy say, boy, what a jerk he is. And then he'd walk off in the sunset to his wife, and they'd say, isn't it wonderful what happened to John, you know? And I always thought that this was going to happen to me, but it never happened this way. But one day I made up my mind I was going to really quit drinking, and I went home and I stayed dry over Saturday and Sunday, and I figured that this was... And so Monday I went down, my wife would say, why don't you drink like other men? I don't mind you have a couple of beers, but you don't have to get so drunk. He said, what, they got hooks in them joints? They pull you off the street or something, you know? But I went down to have these 2 beers, and there was a party going on. Well, you can't come home then. So I come home Wednesday, and I come up to the door. Now, up to this point, I feel that I can plead ignorance, but up to this, I come up to this door, and the door opened, and she should have been working. And she said to me, if you're going to drink this stuff, you go down and do it. She said, I can't take it no more. And I believe at this point, I had my first spiritual experience, because I felt that I had read about AA in the Herald American, and I figured that this was good for those guys down at Skid Row. If I was back down there, I'd call them, you know. And I at that moment, I thought about AA, and I said, I'm going to do something. I went down to Gin Mills, and I called up. I had a rough time finding it, but I finally found it, and the woman says, for you? I said, it is. She said, well, you go home, and I'll send 2 guys over tonight. And I started off the bar, and there was a guy sitting there. He said, come on, have a drink. I said, no, I don't want one. He says, come on, have one. I says, no. I says, I quit drinking. I don't want any more. I called AA. And his face lit up, and he turned in his stool, and he looked at me, and he says, that's great. I hear you do such wonderful things. I'm sure that'll help you. Now, this is people talk about they quit because they had to. I proved that I didn't have to quit drinking. I proved it. But I quit drinking because of a desire. I didn't want to live like I was living. I was tired. I was an old man. I must have been 150 years old. I've been ready for Social Security for years. The guy says they're lonesome. There's the lonesomest drunk in the world. He sends his picture in a lonely heart club, and he got a letter back and says, we aren't that lonely. But after this guy talked to me, and I wanted to talk to someone, I wanted to tell someone I am not the jerk that everybody says I am. And so I got home, and I wanted to, my wife was washing dishes. I went in the house. I know she didn't expect me back, but she was washing dishes, and I didn't want to tell her. I said, there's going to be a couple of guys that talk to me tonight. She said, I don't want any of your drunken friends around here. I said, but I called AA. She said, you haven't had guts enough to call AA. Well, what do you do? I went and locked myself in the bedroom, and to make it a little shorter, this time, it just bugged me. So I laid in the sack in the bed, and I thought about all of my life, and I know that I drank. I used to say I drank because I had problems, but I know I had problems with I drank. And I got up that night, and I went out and I sat and waited, and nobody showed up. Saturday came, the rest of the week, nobody showed. And during this time, I figured they were in the saloon checking out, and I figured I was too bad, and they couldn't do nothing for me, you know. And I figured, well, they don't want me real drunk from this thing, you know. But finally they came on Sunday morning. And I believe that all my life's players were paying off about this time, because there he was, standing in the doorway. When she said, someone here to see, I said, who the hell is that? She said, I don't know who it is. So I got out there, I got me one of the bottle game. You know, we play gopher. I got a dime, you got a nickel, who's going to go for it, you know? But I got there, here he was standing with a big smile on his face, which was pretty ridiculous, you know. And I thought there was anything, I hope there's nothing damn ridiculous about me. But he come in and he sat down, and he started talking about me, and told me it was a disease, and he went on to talk about 1 was too many and 10,000 wasn't enough. And I said, well, I've seen there's all the willpower in the world because of drinking I don't have any at all. And he laughed. He said, but willpower, I'd still be drunk. Now, this made sense. He invited me to a meeting. First time anybody asked me to go anyplace. They told me a lot of places to go. But I went to this meeting, and I sat in it, and they talked about all these tolerance and patience and all these things, and the guy come to me and said, would you like to say something? I said, yeah, this is great, but how do you stay sober? And the guy said, well, ask the power great himself to help you. I said, you mean God? He said, yeah, you want to call him? But I said, I've asked him many times. I didn't get any help. I took him nosedives in every mission in the coast. He says, well, believe in God. He said, suppose the devil would good of it to him. But I learned how to stay sober, and I had a big decision in my life to make, because that night I went home and I thought about asking for help. I didn't figure I'd get help. But when morning came, I was so afraid I wasn't going to help, I got on my knees and I said, God, help me be sober. And I've never had a drink since. Now, I didn't know about anything about sobriety. I believe that I got a free ride. I didn't know how these steps, I didn't know nothing about these things. But I asked. I stayed dry 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. It went over a month, and the impact hit me that this thing was working. This is where I came to believe that God would restore me to sanity. And this is the thing that I went out and started sobering every drunk in the neighborhood. I was pulling them out of saloons, and I had them upstairs in the attic. My wife said, who we got up there now? I said, we got to help these guys, you know. When every single find every day down in the kitchen, and we'd have pass the vitamin bottle, you know, and then we'd adjourn to the living room, and Father O'Grimsey would deliver the daily sermon. None of these guys were getting sober, but I know for the first time I was forgetting about myself, and I was thinking about somebody else. To me, AA is the greatest program since Coke. Because where would I have gone that morning that I wanted to do something when everything in the world was against me? I had problems with everything. I couldn't do nothing right. I was like the guy who woke up in the San Francisco earthquake and he says, my God, how am I going to pay for all this? Now, it's just like going to AA now. Just going to meetings, sitting in the meeting doesn't make me an AA. Just sitting in the meeting. That'll make me an AA. More if I go to church and sit in the pew make me a Christian, or sit in a hen house make me a hen. There's 12 steps, you know. That's why that Bill was talking about the road 6 step, but they figured they were better write 12 so the alcoholic can't wiggle out of it, you know. But one of the gifts, the real gift of AA is this chance to be useful, to be needed, to be wanted. You walk down the street, I don't have to sneak down alleys anymore. You know, I can walk down the street and I can say, how are you, and all these things. This is the wonderful part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I know where I'm going. I got this chance to be useful. I've been humbled. And God has put me on a pedestal and said, this is what I've done. Nobody in AA has kept me sober. They've showed me how, but they don't keep me sober. I'm like the guy that had the beautiful watch and it broke. And he didn't, and he took it to a jeweler, and the guy fixed it, took it to another jeweler, and this thing kept on. Finally, he got real discouraged, and he says, I don't know what to do. And he thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'll take it back to the guy who made it. And it's been working good ever since. This, to me, AA itself, they talk about finding a cure for alcoholism. I don't think they'll ever find a cure for alcoholism. When they find a cure for alcoholism, I think the next day will be Judgment Day. Because where are they going to find a pill that's going to give me faith and honesty and open-mindedness and willingness and trust and all these things? And as far as my higher power of God, as I understand him, I'm like the little kid who's playing beside his bed, and his father and mother told him to talk a little louder, and he says, who's talking to you? It's a personal thing. I believe that if I put God in second place, I give him no place. So he has to come first. I have 3 anchors I hold on to. I believe God. I belong to him, and I serve him. Now, I don't know of any other way to work this thing. I'm just a simple slob. I am not a fancy dude as far as AA is concerned. I got a woodshed type AA. This is the guy. I believe in the book. I follow the book, and I believe in helping drunks. I can't let the younger man do it because I need it as much as he does. And the only way I can give it away is to keep it by giving it away. Now, the thing that I'm going to close this thing. I got to get wound up here. The thing that I would like to leave, there is a promise that comes from Isaiah. It said, I will lead them by a way they know not. I will make things darkness light before them. These things will I do unto them, and not forsake them. Thank you.